Welcome back, friends, to my next worm video. As you can see, this is my worm bin 1 on the 1st of April, and it was 6 days since I last fed it. I'm going to do another picture-in-picture here showing you my last feeding from 6 days ago. If I can remember, it was a pretty small feeding that I did, some chopped up bell peppers, other stuff. Yeah, I did a pretty small feeding on this one. And as almost always, I gave it some little bit of paper and crushed eggshells. It's really cool looking at this and just seeing like kind of all the worm castings that build up over the top of the newspaper that I leave, and just how like the deterioration of all the newspaper and stuff. I think what I did with this is I realized all this stuff that you're looking at right now, um, it's getting towards the end of its life, and it's not it doesn't act as good of a cover as it once did. So I think I just ended up burying all this stuff to include those coffee filters. So just kind of policing everything up and bunching it together. So then that when I start digging in here, I can just bury it up. So as that video showed, my last feeding was on the right-hand side, and it was a pretty small feeding. Just dig in here and see what we got here. Uh, as with my last couple of videos, it seems like the worms have been spread out a lot more in the bin, as opposed to think like a couple weeks ago they were just really heavily concentrated on the side of the bin that I fed, and now over the last couple weeks they've been doing really well at eating the food that I'm giving on whatever side it is, and there's still, as you can see, a lot of worms there. Um, but they're not all concentrated just in that one spot, and they're actually throughout the entire bin. Everywhere I dig, there are some worms. Um, it's not really vacant anywhere. Um, so yeah, it's like as I cycle this newspaper that I keep using as covering, I'm starting to kind of spread it out and bury some of it. Um, and so yeah, I buried all this stuff kind of intermittently through starting from the right, kind of going towards the center. Uh, and this video that I'm doing is going to be two videos in a row. So in this same video that you're watching now, after I'm done with this feeding, it'll cut to 7 days later, the very next feeding. So we'll get to see in this video um, the progress of all this stuff that I'm burying, all the food that I'm giving it in this feeding. We're going to cut to 7 days later, and so just I just try to do this, and if you're following along, it's interesting exercise and just studying it, seeing where I put all the newspaper, and like when I dig it up next time, is it still going to be there? Just really interesting. So nice, healthy worms. Tried to get a little close up there. That probably wasn't the best handful to get a close up of, but that's fine. Um, yeah, it's nice. You can see there's just worms all over the place. I don't really know when I can start. I really like harvesting castings is still really in the back of my mind. It doesn't seem like something that is that close still. Um, I don't know what it's supposed to look like, honestly. I don't. It's starting to look pretty good though. But I'm not. Uh, I'm just gonna keep going until I even think about doing castings. So I don't drink a lot of coffee, and I ran out of coffee grounds. I hadn't fed it in a while, and now I got some built up. And so I threw some in with this run. Let's see, what's all the stuff that I fed here? I did some coffee grounds, some eggshells, some chopped up banana peels, potato skins, some greens, as you can see, and a little bit of rice. I think it was the I made, in my rice maker, just made some rice, and all the stuff that kind of sticks to the bottom, when I clean that out, instead of throwing that down the trash disposal, I just kind of drained the water and then grabbed that rice up and fed it to my worms. Um, yeah, I think I've mentioned before how it's really interesting how keeping worms affects your diet. I want to eat more. Um, I want to eat more vegetables, which is really good. Because I like having the scraps to feed to my worms, and then also coffee. Like, I'm not a huge coffee drinker, but I enjoy it every now and then, and this just gives me some incentive to make coffee in the morning, uh, so I can have some coffee grounds for my worms. When I do make coffee, I actually like. I'm worried about it being too acidic for my worms, so actually I run water through again, and I make like just a more diluted version of coffee uh, after I've already run it, just to really make sure I get all the acid out of there. And I always put cream in my coffee, so um, maybe some of you coffee aficionados out there would be like disgusted with me that sometimes I drink diluted coffee. But I know that the grounds that I'm giving my worms are not super acidic because I do that. Um, yeah. Uh, so I think I covered the plastic here, and then I remembered, oh, my glove. I always I want to clean off my glove with whatever dirt and castings got attached to it, and then there's always worms that stick to the gloves too. So I really just want to spray the worms off and put them back in the bin. And the last few weeks, it seems like I have not. I'm always like spraying a little bit of water in there, or usually am. It seems like I'm never putting too much in. It never seems like there's too much, which is really nice. So as I was talking about, as I said, here's 7 days later. Here's the 8th of April. The exact same bin. The bin is in the same orientation. I've made that mistake before where, because I turn the bins 90 degrees and then I shove them down the countertop just from where it's looking at right now. And obviously, when you turn 90 degrees, you may forget which 90 degrees you turned, and then you could turn it into 180. And I made a mistake recently, and I'm trying to keep better track. I actually, I think just after I filmed this video, I put a Sharpie mark on the outside of the bin. Yeah, as you can see, I tried to give you a little close up of the plastic baggie where all the a lot of baby worms just love hanging out there. And then I noticed this newspaper that I've been using is getting to the end of the road, so I think I ended up burying that stuff as well. And if you just look at that newspaper before I picked it up and you rewind the video about a minute, you can make a comparison 7 days, how long 7 days does. There was like holes in the newspaper that wasn't there before, and obviously it's just much more degraded, which is really cool to see. Um, you can still see a lot of eggshells, obviously there. I was grinding them in a coffee grinder, but then I started doing a mortar and pestle. I was obviously I was getting them much finer in the coffee grinder, but I didn't like the coffee grinder of risking making it too powdery and then accidentally bringing it in and stuff. So I wanted to see if I could figure out a way to grind them not as fine. And the mortar and pestle seems like a really good way to do that. Um, and so I don't know which is better. I'm just trying different things, really. Okay, so digging through this, you can see that newspaper um, that we had buried. We had buried several things in newspaper, and you're not seeing all of it, I don't think. Maybe there's still a lot of it. Yeah, you see it there. Um, so yeah, there's still that newspaper does not get eaten up all in a week. But I'm gonna use a new covering for this one, and that's the old covering that I just took off when I opened this bin up, and I'm gonna place my food on top of that stuff. So for this next feeding that I'm doing, uh, it's funny. When I'm videotaping all these feedings now. I'm trying to be consistent and just like videotape it all and just consistently put out videos. But then I have to show my shame of these blueberries that I did not eat in time, and I forgot about them. I let them sit in my fridge, and to the point where some of them started growing a little mold, and it's like, oh, now I gotta feed it to my worms, which I'm sure the worms will love. But you know, now I'm broadcasting to the entire world how wasteful I am with the food that I eat. But so I am broadcasting my shame for you all with these blueberries. But also, I'm trying. I've been steering clear of onions and citrus and jalapenos and stuff. And actually, what's in this one is some onion skins and some little the ends of onions that I chop up and use. And even there's very little amount of the ends and stems of jalapenos that I've been using in here. And maybe that's a huge mistake, and it's gonna kill a couple worms or something. I don't know. Like I've read a lot that worms are pretty resilient and they actually will just eat almost anything. And so maybe it's not the best experiment to put in the jalapeno stuff and the onion stuff with the berries that are most likely good. But um, I did want to try that. I just wanted to throw a little bit in there and see how it goes. Um, it's not going to be that great of an experiment because there's just a little bit and it's with other stuff. So I don't know how I'm going to measure it next time. But I figured I'd just throw some in there and just see how it does. And put a new covering on top. So we're actually coming to the end now. I did it. I sufficiently rambled for 12 minutes. uh, I'll go ahead and post this video to my channel like the other ones. Uh, yeah, thanks for watching. This has been a really cool thing. I'm going to continue making these videos and just sharing my journey with this stuff. And I'm having fun with it, and I hope anyone who watches gets something out of it. I'll see you guys. Bye.